They say a good marriage is built on trust. I used to believe that. My name is Mason. I'm 42 years old, and I live in Santa Rosa, California. I make custom furniture, one-of-a-kind pieces carved from reclaimed wood, sold to boutique hotels and overpaid tech executives who want their living rooms to feel artisanal. My wife, Lena, teaches culinary arts at a community college. She's vibrant, sharp, magnetic, the kind of woman people naturally gravitate toward. We've been married 10 years. People always told us we were the perfect couple. We even believed it ourselves. To celebrate our anniversary, we booked a trip to a wellness resort in the Philippines. Something different, tropical, romantic, supposed to rekindle things. We'd been so caught up in work and routines that we needed a reset. Or maybe I just needed to believe we still needed each other. We flew out of San Francisco on a Monday, early morning. She wore that pale blue travel set I bought her last Christmas, silky joggers, and a matching top. Her hair up in a messy bun, sunglasses balanced on her head, sipping iced coffee like she wasn't exhausted from the red-eye check-in. I watched her from across the terminal, sitting by the window while I went to grab snacks. That's when I saw him. He was already talking to her, tall, tan, maybe mid-30s, dressed like a travel blogger. Charcoal v-neck, worn leather sandals. He leaned a little too close when she laughed. And she did laugh, full, open, like she meant it. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but Lena tilted her head in that way she does when she's intrigued. Not polite interested. Genuinely interested. When I returned with snacks, she introduced him as Julian. Said they had met in line getting boarding passes. He's headed to the same retreat, she said with a casual smile. What are the odds? I forced a laugh. On the plane, I sat by the window. Lena was in the middle. Julian across the aisle. She and I had booked the seats, but now I felt like I was the third wheel in my own marriage. I kept my eyes on a documentary I wasn't really watching, pretending to sleep when the flight attendant dimmed the lights. That's when I noticed it. The way she leaned toward the aisle when Julian spoke, just enough to hear him over the engines. The way they held eye contact, longer than strangers usually do. He touched her elbow once when she reached for something under her seat. She smiled but didn't move away. It could have been innocent. A friendly traveler. A coincidence. But it didn't feel like nothing. It felt familiar. And wrong. I turned my head and closed my eyes, willing myself to sleep. I wasn't ready to admit what I was seeing. Not yet. But something in my gut whispered, this isn't the beginning of a vacation. It's the beginning of the end. The resort was a dream, glass bungalows perched over aquamarine water, hammocks swaying between coconut palms, every inch of the place curated to make people forget their problems. But I didn't forget. I couldn't. Lena acted like everything was perfect. She snapped pictures of fruit platters and ocean views, posted them with captions like Paradise Found Yellow Heart. But the way she moved felt staged. Her laugh was a second too loud. Her touches, a second too delayed. The first morning, we had a couples massage scheduled. Lena canceled it, said she had a migraine and wanted to rest in the room. I left quietly, wandered the beach by myself. Tried to talk myself out of what I was thinking. That afternoon, we sat by the pool. I read a paperback I didn't care about. Lena scrolled on her phone, smiling at something. Her screen tilted just enough to catch a glimpse, and there it was, a message preview from Julian. Julian, you looked incredible last night. Can't stop thinking about you. She tilted the phone away. My stomach dropped. When she left to use the spa bathroom, I waited a beat, then grabbed her phone from the towel beside me. She'd never changed the passcode. My fingers moved on autopilot. I opened her messages and saw the thread, dozens of texts. Julian, that dress last night. Damn. Lena, your trouble. Meet me near the bungalows tonight. Julian, tell Mason you need time to yourself again. Lena, he'll believe it. He always does. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. Everything in me wanted to hurl the phone into the ocean, scream at her in front of the entire resort, but I didn't. Instead, I took a breath, locked the screen, and put the phone back. When she returned, she kissed me on the cheek and asked if I wanted another drink. I nodded. She smiled like we were on our honeymoon. Later, while she napped, or pretended to, I walked the property. I spotted Julian alone on a chaise, drinking something bright and sugary. He laughed with a bartender, tossed a towel over his shoulder, and walked toward the private villas. I followed from a distance. An hour later, I saw them by the infinity pool, her in a red bikini, him shirtless, laughing together, close. Too close. Then it happened. He leaned in. She let him. They kissed. And I filmed the whole thing. Not out of curiosity, Not out of pain. Out of necessity. Something in me had flipped. The part of me that still believed this was salvageable had died. I wasn't just a husband anymore. I was a witness. A planner. That night, back in the room, Lena emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, said she wasn't feeling well again. Might be something I ate. I'm going to rest. I kissed her forehead and told her to sleep. Then I sat outside on the balcony, phone in hand, watching the video again and again, each replay hardening something inside me. I didn't know exactly what I'd do yet, but I knew this much. I wasn't going to confront her. I was going to build something. Something quiet, methodical, devastating. The next day, Lena barely looked at me. Said she had cramps. Female stuff, she muttered, like it was some impenetrable shield of privacy. I nodded like I believed her, kissed her temple, and offered to bring her water. She smiled faintly and said, "You're sweet." It was the same water bottle she'd always used, stainless steel, powder blue, with a little dent on the side. When she wasn't looking, I unscrewed the cap and sniffed. There was something off. Barely perceptible, but not right. A faint chemical bitterness beneath the lemon slices. I didn't drink it. Instead, I slipped it into my day pack, swapped it with a bottle from the mini fridge, and made sure to fake a long, satisfying gulp right in front of her. She watched me with too much interest for someone nursing cramps. I waited until her breathing grew slow and steady on the bed. Then I hit record on my phone and set it on the nightstand. At exactly 9:42 p.m., she stirred, sat up, stretched like a cat, and tiptoed into the bathroom. A few minutes later, she emerged fully dressed, black dress, sandals, small clutch. No sign of pain. No cramping. She slipped out the door. I waited a full 2 minutes, then followed. Julian was already waiting at the rooftop bar. I saw them through the thick glass wall, seated at a table in the corner, secluded, but not hidden. She kissed his cheek, ordered drinks. I found a table nearby and sat with my back mostly turned, just close enough to hear. Julian laughed about something, leaned in and whispered, "You sure he doesn't suspect anything?" Lena rolled her eyes. "He's clueless." I told him I needed rest. He practically tucked me in. He chuckled. "Then let's make tonight count." They toasted with cocktails, hers red, his golden. I snapped a discreet photo. Then, as they turned to admire the ocean view, I slipped away. Back to the room. Back to the plan. I opened Lena's clutch, careful not to disturb anything. Tucked inside, between her lipstick and travel-sized deodorant, was a blister pack of pills. Unlabeled. Just enough gone to raise questions. I pocketed one. Took a picture of the rest. Next, I went back to the pool area where Julian had been earlier. He'd left a towel behind, monogrammed, resort issued. But tucked under it, I found something more useful, a keycard. Probably to the spare villa he'd booked. I had no intention of using it, not yet, but I made sure it disappeared. Back in the room, I laid down beside her empty spot in bed, rewound the video on my phone, and watched again. Her slipping into her dress. Her smile. Her smooth, quiet exit. The video was timestamped. Logged. Stored in 3 cloud accounts. I wasn't just documenting betrayal anymore. I was collecting evidence. Building a case. And soon, when the moment was right, I'd use every piece of it. But not to confront her. To dismantle her. The next morning, I woke up early and acted like nothing was wrong. Lena was already showered, towel drying her hair, humming to herself like she hadn't spent the night in someone else's bed. She looked relaxed. Rested. I asked how she was feeling. "Much better," she said with a smile. "I think I just needed sleep." I nodded. "I have something for you." She looked surprised. "What kind of something?" "A gift," I said, reaching into my suitcase. "A full-day gourmet cooking class. Local ingredients. Hands-on. You'll love it." Lena looked at the brochure, her mouth pulling into a polite but puzzled smile. "You booked this for me?" "Of course. You've been saying you wanted to do more hands-on stuff. Not just teach." She hesitated, probably wondering if I knew. But then she smiled again, that calculated kind of smile. "That's sweet. Thank you." She left just before 10 a.m., wearing a white sundress and the same sandals she'd worn to the bar with Julian. She kissed my cheek on her way out. I watched her disappear down the path lined with hibiscus and waited a few minutes before moving. I already knew where Julian's room was, Villa 12A, far end of the property, one of the romantic seclusion suites. I had copied the number from the tag on his keycard. While Lena whisked tropical marinades and learned how to plate fish with edible flowers, I headed down the narrow path toward Julian's private villa. I didn't knock. I just stood back and watched. Around noon, two women walked in, early 20s, both blonde, both with accents that sounded European. Neither of them was Lena. They greeted Julian with pecks on the cheek like they already knew him. He handed them drinks. They laughed. They didn't leave. I found a spot behind a row of palm trees and zoomed in with my phone camera. Julian didn't close the blinds. Maybe he thought he didn't need to. I filmed everything. They lounged in ropes. He moved between them, kissing one, then the other. It wasn't love. It wasn't even connection. It was routine. Eventually, I stopped watching and just listened. Listened to the sound of Julian digging the same hole he was burying Lena in. I backed up the footage to 3 drives. Uploaded a copy to a private account. Sent another to my email. Then I walked back to the main lodge, grabbed a drink, and waited for Lena to return, flushed, sweaty, glowing from the fake joy of perfecting some tropical rice dish. She asked how my day had gone. I said, relaxing. She said hers had been inspiring. We both lied. But only one of us had something to lose. By the next morning, everything was in motion. At breakfast, Lena sat across from me in a lavender wrap dress, scrolling through her phone with a subtle, impatient twitch in her jaw. She said she didn't sleep well. Might be the heat, she added, barely looking up. I told her we should cut the trip short. My brother called, I said, lying effortlessly. Something about Mom not feeling well. I think we should head back early. She blinked. Are you serious? Dead serious. I already checked. There's a flight tomorrow morning. She hesitated. I was hoping to, enjoy the last few days. I shrugged. Family comes first, right? She forced a smile. Of course. We finished breakfast in silence. As soon as we got back to the room, she claimed to be tired again. Said she might nap before dinner. I nodded, kissed her forehead, and told her to rest. Then I got to work. I had already transferred all the files from my phone to 3 separate thumb drives. One of them I sealed inside a padded envelope and addressed to my older brother, Eli, in Santa Cruz. Just in case anything happened, a fail-safe. I dropped it at the front desk and told them to mail it priority. The other 2 drives I tucked into small gift bags and placed outside the villas of the 2 women I had filmed with Julian. I didn't know their full stories, but the footage was clear enough. I had seen their boyfriends, one American, one British, briefly, during the airport shuttle. It wouldn't take much for a thumb drive with the label "For Your Eyes Only" to do serious damage. After that, I returned to the front desk and requested early checkout. Told them my wife's mother was ill, and we'd need to leave first thing in the morning. I said we'd settle the bill later. The clerk offered sympathy. I nodded solemnly, playing the grieving son-in-law. Then I booked the earliest flight I could find. A direct line out of Cebu. Just me. 1 passenger. Back in the bungalow, I began packing everything. My clothes, my gear, my tools, my chargers. I carefully rolled up Lena's dresses, folded her swimsuits, tucked her sandals in beside her perfumes. I packed her entire suitcase, except for her small purse, the one with her passport, money, and phone. That stayed with me. I laid her empty purse on the bedside table and double-checked the pills I'd swiped from her clutch. I still didn't know what they were, but I had a plan for them now. That night, Lena suggested we have drinks at the bar to cheer up before our flight. She was putting on a show, overly affectionate, leaning into me, ordering cocktails with bright garnishes. But her eyes kept darting to the entrance. She was waiting for Julian. She handed me a water bottle. Here, drink this first. You look dehydrated. I took it, raised it to my lips, and then accidentally spilled it onto the table. Damn, I said. Guess I'm tired. She gave me a stiff smile. I'll order another. But I was already ahead of her. I flagged down the bartender and ordered a pair of cocktails myself. I watched her phone buzz silently on the table. She glanced down, didn't touch it. I handed her a drink. To us, I said. She clinked her glass to mine, barely suppressing a smirk. Neither of us mentioned what was in the drinks. She didn't know I had slipped in 2 of her own pills, crushed fine and colorless. And I didn't tell her I wouldn't be here by morning. The bar was dimly lit, the ocean breeze brushing past us like it had somewhere better to be. Lena sipped her drink slowly, blinking more than usual, her eyelids heavier than before. Julian arrived late, maybe 15 minutes after we did, and gave a nod so casual it could have been for anyone. He didn't sit. He lingered near the edge of the bar until Lena got up to go freshen up and brushed past him like a stranger. I followed at a distance. They didn't notice. I watched as they disappeared around the corner of the spa building, then cut through the gardens and toward the private villas. They didn't hold hands, didn't speak. It wasn't romance. It was routine. I moved quick and quiet, staying far enough behind to avoid being seen but close enough to keep them in view. Julian's door clicked open, and she stepped inside first. He followed. The door shut. Lights on. I waited outside. 3 minutes. 5. 10. Then I moved in. I knocked once. No answer. I used the key card I'd stolen 2 days earlier and stepped inside. They were both on the bed, half-dressed, groggy, confused. Lena tried to sit up, but her arms gave out. Julian blinked at me like I was a stranger. With a Mason? I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I pulled out my phone and snapped pictures. Her blouse unbuttoned. His pants half off. Their eyes glassy and unfocused. The glasses on the table still half full. I found Julian's phone on the dresser. Unlocked. Rookie mistake. Inside, dozens of messages to other women. Married women. Attached women. And photos. Too many photos. I copied everything to my flash drive. Then I took his wallet, his passport, and his room key. I dumped his suitcase upside down, empty drawers, tore the place apart. Grabbed his clothes, shoes, even his shaving kit, and tossed them in a black trash bag I'd brought along. Next, I moved Alina's clutch. Her passport? Gone. Credit cards? Gone. Phone? Gone. I took them all. Everything essential, I packed into my bag. Everything else, lip balm, charger, jewelry, I scattered around the room like debris from a storm. Julian was mumbling now, trying to sit up, swaying like a drunk toddler. Lena wasn't even speaking. Her head lolled to the side, her body limp and useless. "Good night," I said quietly, to no one in particular. I left the villa and walked her back to our bungalow, slow, careful, supporting her like a husband might with a sick wife. No one questioned it. No one looked twice. Back in our room, I laid her gently on the bed. Her breath shallow but steady. Her phone, wallet, and ID gone. Her bag zipped shut with only clothes and sunscreen inside. No money. No identity. At 3:40 a.m., I wheeled my suitcase to the front desk and smiled at the sleepy attendant. Change of plans. "Just me flying out now," I said. "She's staying a few more days." They nodded. No questions. Why would there be? By 4:15, I was in the car to the airport. By sunrise, I was gone. Lena woke up alone. No passport. No money. No phone. No husband. Julian would wake up in his own kind of ruin. No ID. No clothes. And digital landmines scattered in inboxes and driveways he didn't even know were rigged. And me? I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. I landed in San Francisco just after noon. No check bags. No return ticket. Just a carry-on, my passport, and the freedom that came with being nobody for a while. By sunset, I was back in Santa Rosa. Our house looked exactly the same. White stucco, black shutters, the little rosemary bushes Lena always forgot to water. I parked a few streets away and walked the rest of the way on foot, hoodie pulled up, sunglasses on. Not because I was hiding, because I was done being seen. Inside, I moved quickly. I transferred everything from our joint accounts into a separate one in my name. It wasn't theft, not legally. Our prenup spelled it out clear. Whatever I earned from the business stayed mine. I'd made sure of that after our second year of marriage when Lena started asking about equity in my company. "Just in case," she'd said. I packed up my personal files, business licenses, contracts. The safe behind the bookshelf held the real stuff, backups of my client orders, signed checks, the USB drive with the video of Lena and Julian by the pool. I didn't take furniture. I didn't take dishes. I took what I built. Everything else could rot. Then I went to the garage. The house was my pride, custom designed and mostly built by my own hands. Vaulted with ceilings, hidden lighting, dovetailed joints on every drawer. A craftsman's temple. But it had one flaw, a hidden structural weak point behind the custom front door, a trick hinge I designed as a surprise feature during renovations. A soft spot. Decorative, mostly. Until now. It took me 2 hours to set it. A steel pin, a simple pulley, and a catch line tucked into the wall. Once the front door opened all the way past 90 degrees, the tension would shift. Enough to cause the front joist to splinter. Not a total collapse. Just a catastrophic one. It would be loud, dramatic, impossible to ignore. Before I left, I placed a note on the coffee table. "Welcome home. Love, M." Then I called the neighbor across the street, Terry, a semi-retired drone hobbyist with too much free time. I told him I was planning a surprise welcome home video for Lena. Asked if he could film her pulling into the driveway. Just the moment she walks in, I said. He loved the idea. Said he'd record it from the upstairs window. Perfect. By dusk, I was already 3 hours away with my phone powered off and my name scrubbed from every lease and utility. I checked into a roadside motel outside Reno under my new alias, Mason Grant. Not a fake name, just an earlier one, from before Lena. By the end of the week, I had signed the lease on a small cabin in Colorado, about 45 minutes from Boulder. Quiet town, big trees, enough space to build again. Nobody knew me. That was the point. I didn't file for divorce. Didn't send papers. I didn't need to. She'd have to find me first. But she wouldn't. Because everything she'd built was tied to me. The house, the money, the life. And now it was Ash. And when she opened that door and the frame cracked and the ceiling buckled, she'd know. This wasn't abandonment. It was a message. The video hit my inbox 3 days later. Terry had emailed it with the subject line, "You owe me a beer." It was shaky, handheld, filmed from across the street through his upstairs blinds. But it captured everything. Lena pulling into the driveway in a cab, looking exhausted, dragging her suitcase across the gravel. No makeup, hair tied back, confused. She unlocked the front door, stepped inside. Terry zoomed in right as the threshold gave way. A loud crack. A second of stunned silence. Then the left support beam fractured. The front portion of the entryway, the custom ceiling panels, part of the foyer wall, came crashing down in a burst of plaster, wood, and dust. She stumbled backward out the door, hands over her face, screaming. I replayed it 3 times. Then I deleted it. Closure wasn't the point. The message was. A week later, Lena tried calling. Blocked. She emailed. I didn't respond. She messaged my brother, Eli. That's when I knew the thumb drive I'd mailed him had reached its destination. He called me that night. Jesus, Mason, he said. You really did it. I didn't say anything. I saw the videos, he continued. All of them. You okay? I'm better than okay, I said. I'm out. Eli didn't ask questions after that. He just said, good. You deserved better. Then he promised to keep everything safe, just in case. By the end of the month, word started spreading. Julian had been hospitalized in Manila after getting jumped in the street. According to one of the women I'd left a thumb drive for, her boyfriend had received the footage and gone straight for Julian's face. The other woman's partner had apparently followed suit. Julian's jaw was broken in 2 places. He wouldn't be charming anyone for a while. Back in California, Lena tried damage control. She told mutual friends we'd grown apart. She claimed I had abandoned her overseas. But the lies didn't stick. The real footage made its rounds in private messages and whispered conversations. Then came the bombshell. She claimed she was pregnant. Said I was the father. My brother called again. She's reaching, Eli said. You want to nip this now? Handle it, I told him. And he did. A DNA test proved what I already suspected. The baby wasn't mine. She'd been careless. Sloppy. Thought she could salvage her reputation with sympathy. Even my mother, who adored Lena, cut her off after that. Sent her a 1-line message. Don't call here again. The last thing I ever received from her was a voicemail. Sobbing, barely coherent, recorded from the front yard of our ruined house. I don't know where you are, she cried. But please. I lost everything. I listened once, then deleted it. That was 3 years ago. Now I live in a cabin outside Nederland, Colorado. I build furniture for locals and hikers, drink coffee on my porch, and listen to wind through the pines instead of excuses. Sometimes people ask why I moved here. I just say, I needed space. I never tell them the rest. Because the man I used to be, the trusting husband, the blind romantic, the fool, disappeared in the Philippines. And he's not coming back.